The ballroom was filled with luxurious lights, expensive gowns, and formal conversations full of small talk. The invited guests from elite circles stood in small groups, chatting with glasses of wine in their hands. In a corner of the room, a large banner read, "Grand Opening the Jeon Legacy Hotel." Among the crowd, Yin stood gracefully beside her father and mother. A soft lavender evening gown wrapped around her body, her hair neatly pinned up, but her smile looked half-hearted. She listened to her parents' conversation with the Jeon family and several other prominent figures, all sounding like diplomacy wrapped in fake warmth. The Jeon and Park families were longtime partners, not only in legal business but also in their invisible organizations. And although it was an unspoken secret never openly discussed, everyone in the room knew the boundaries of who could be touched and who could not. One name clearly untouchable was Jungkook. Her classmate from the business department stood far from the crowd on the open balcony connected to the ballroom. He seemed uninterested in all the luxury around him. His face was calm, expressionless, and, as usual, cold, as if the outside world was none of his concern. Yin glanced toward her father, who was still deep in discussion, then took a breath. With light steps, she left the group and headed toward the dessert table. "If events like this keep happening, I could die of boredom," she muttered while taking a small plate. She picked up a piece of strawberry shortcake, a mini tiramisu, and a fruit tart. After filling her plate, her eyes shifted back to the balcony. Without hesitation, she walked toward it. The night breeze greeted her as the balcony door opened. Jungkook didn't turn around. He remained leaning against the balcony railing, gazing at the city's night sky. "Alone again?" Yin greeted, standing beside him. "It's calmer here," he replied flatly. Yin lifted her plate. "Want some cake?" Jungkook glanced briefly, then shook his head. "You forgot I don't like sweet things?" Yin smiled, not offended. "I forgot. You're on the savory team." She ate her cake while leaning against the balcony railing. They were silent for a moment. Only the faint sound of music from inside could be heard. "Hey, you know about our parents' plan, right?" Yin opened the topic casually. "I know," Jungkook replied, still staring at the city view. "We'll get married after we graduate," Yin said, like it was an established fact. Jungkook glanced at her briefly, then said calmly but sharply, "What if I refuse?" Yin froze instantly. "Huh?" Her eyes widened, and her face immediately turned into a frown. "What did you just say?" Jungkook stayed calm. "I said, what if I refuse?" Yin put her plate on the small balcony table, then crossed her arms. "You can't refuse. It's not about can or can't. I'm just saying, what if?" Jungkook emphasized that word, holding back a slight smile. Yin's face grew even more sour. What if? I don't like that word." Jungkook raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because it means you're thinking about refusing." Jungkook stared at her for a moment. "Marrying because it's arranged doesn't always end well, Yin." Yin immediately shook her head firmly. "I don't care. I want you. Period." Jungkook kept looking at her, expressionless. Yin stepped half a step forward, bit her lower lip, then stared at him with a protesting look. "I'm serious. If you refuse, You what?" he asked, his tone flat. "I'll make every girl who tries to get close to you run away before they can confess their love to you," she said determinedly. Jungkook was silent, then let out a thin sigh. "You are?" "What?" Yin looked at him challengingly, but her eyes sparkled like a child waiting for an answer. "Stubborn." "Let me be." Yin turned her face away, now looking ahead. Jungkook kept staring at her for a few seconds, then also turned his gaze forward. The night breeze blew, making Yin wrap her arms tighter around herself because of the cold. Without many words, Jungkook took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. Yin was surprised for a moment, then a small smile appeared on her face. "So you can be sweet sometimes, huh?" she said while hugging his jacket. "No, I'm just lending you my jacket, not trying to be cheesy," Jungkook quickly denied. Yin chuckled softly. "That means you care about me, not just sweet words coming from your mouth," she replied, hugging the jacket tightly. Jungkook just glanced briefly. "So you won't be cold?" Yin smiled widely but still pretended to pout. "I haven't forgiven you for the what if earlier." Jungkook looked at her flatly. "What if I said I was just joking?" Yin quickly turned her head. "Seriously?" Jungkook nodded slightly. Yin's expression changed completely, from a frown to relief. Then she lightly hit his arm. "You're so mean. You deliberately made me angry." Jungkook didn't react, just stared at her with an unreadable look. "You take things way too seriously." Yin snorted. but her smile couldn't be hidden. Well, I take it seriously because you're always serious. Never joke around, and when you do joke, it actually scares me and makes me mad. It should make me smile, right? Jungkook stayed silent, not answering. Yin stood beside him, their eyes fixed on the glittering sea of city lights below. The night breeze drifted softly, lifting strands of her hair in gentle sways. Neither of them spoke, simply savoring the quiet that stretched between them. After a while, her breath slightly held, Yin began to inch closer toward Jungkook's side. Her heart pounded, but she tried to stay calm. Without saying a word, she stole a glance at Jungkook's impassive, cold face, then gathered the courage to rest her head on his shoulder. For a moment, she waited for his reaction, half expecting him to push her away. But Jungkook remained still, unmoving. His silence wasn't cold like usual. It felt almost accepting. That made Yin's lips curl into a small smile, a warmth blooming in her chest despite the cool night air. Jungkook, her voice was soft, as if cutting through the night stillness. Actually, when we're on campus, I wish I could be closer to you. Jungkook kept his gaze on the view beyond the balcony, not turning to her. You know I'm not into small talk. I'm not cold. I just don't have a reason to talk to you. Yin let out a light sigh, adjusting her head on his shoulder for more comfort. But you're so cold in class. It's hard for me to even start a conversation with you. Because you never seem close to any girl. Other girls keep trying to get your attention. Jungkook raised one eyebrow slightly. That's because I've never been close to a girl, and I've never had a girlfriend. Yin smirked playfully, leaning her face a little closer toward him. Well, now you have me. Jungkook looked at her without expression. You're not my girlfriend. Yin refused to back down, her voice lilting with teasing confidence. Not your girlfriend, but your fiancé, she said while leaning in, her hand brushing lightly against his arm. Jungkook stayed quiet, not denying it, simply shifting his gaze back to the wide city view. That silence felt like a signal to Yin. She smiled sweetly, looping her arm through his and resting her head again. Starting tomorrow on campus, don't be so cold to me, okay? I want you to be a little warmer toward me, even if it's just a little. Jungkook drew in a quiet breath, not replying right away, but without a word, he moved his arm slightly closer, just enough to make space for Yin to cling to his side. The next day, Yin had arrived in class earlier that morning, choosing a seat in the middle row alongside Mina and Yuju. The room was still relatively quiet, filled only with the soft chatter of a few students as they opened their laptops or prepared their books. Not long after, the classroom door swung open. Jungkook walked in with Minju, Yoonwoo, and Jaehyun. For a brief moment, Yin's and Jungkook's eyes met. It lasted only a split second, just long enough to make Yin's heart race, recalling vividly what had happened the night before. However, Jungkook's expression didn't change at all. His face remained calm, even slightly impassive, as if there was nothing worth remembering. Mina, seated beside Yin, glanced at her suspiciously, followed by Yuju, who was equally curious. Why are your cheeks so red? Feeling warm? Mina asked, raising an eyebrow. Yuju frowned. Yeah, and you've been smiling to yourself since earlier. What's going on? Yin only gave a faint smile, lowering her gaze slightly as she fiddled with her pen. Nothing. Just thinking about something, she replied briefly, intentionally keeping her answer vague. Mina and Yuju exchanged puzzled looks, while Yin tried to focus on the book in front of her. Not long after the classroom began to fill with chatter, the sound of small-heeled shoes approached. Yin, who had been busy flipping through her book, instinctively turned her head. A popular girl on campus, Minji, was walking gracefully toward Jungkook's desk, which was in the back row. Her long hair flowed neatly, her lips curved into her signature sweet smile. In her hand, she carried a pretty light brown paper bag with the Godiva logo, an iconic luxury Belgian chocolate brand, its rich aroma noticeable even before it was open. Mina and Yuju automatically glanced over, and Yin felt a slight tightening in her chest. Good morning, Jungkook. Minji's voice was soft and laced with meaning. She then set the paper bag down on Jungkook's desk. This is just for you. Minju, who sat next to Jungkook, immediately turned with a broad grin. Whoa, Minji, why only give it to Jungkook? He teased. Yoonwoo chimed in, raising a brow. Yeah, why aren't we getting any? Jaehyun chuckled. Don't tell me it's a love letter inside? Minji only laughed lightly, then replied while keeping her gaze fixed on Jungkook. Because this is special, just for Jungkook. Yin felt a rush of heat spread in her chest. Her hands unconsciously clenched under the desk. Just for Jungkook. Her heart twisted uncomfortably. At first, Jungkook merely looked at the paper bag without any expression. Yin hoped, or rather silently pleaded, that he would refuse like he always did. But after a few seconds of silence, Jungkook actually took the paper bag, held it for a moment, and said flatly, "Thanks." Minji's face lit up instantly, her eyes sparkling as if she had just won a grand prize. Everyone knew that Jungkook had always refused gifts from girls trying to get his attention, including Minji herself. Several students nearby began whispering in disbelief that Jungkook had accepted it this time. Minji walked back to her seat with a light step and an even brighter expression, while Yin could only turn her gaze toward the whiteboard, trying to hide the expression she knew was far too easy to read. Just moments ago, she could still feel the warmth of last night's moment with Jungkook on the balcony, but now, her mood had plummeted. At the back, Minji patted Jungkook's shoulder. "Open it up, bro. We want some too." Yoonwoo added teasingly, "Yeah, come on, share the blessings." Jaehyun laughed, "At least give us one piece." But Jungkook just glanced at them briefly before answering flatly, "It's mine." "Wow, stingy," Minji teased with a laugh, but Jungkook didn't respond, simply placing the paper bag to the side of his desk, as if he didn't care, or perhaps didn't want the topic discussed further. Yin bit her lip lightly, trying to focus on the notes in front of her, but the sound of Minji's soft, happy laugh from the front row still rang in her ears. Not long after, the classroom door opened again. Professor Han, a senior lecturer known for his strict discipline, walked in carrying a stack of thick books. He headed straight to the front desk, switched on the projector, and began writing on the board. "Alright, today we'll be discussing strategic management for global business," he said firmly. "This course is crucial for those of you in your final year, so please focus." Yin tried to keep her eyes on the projector screen showing a diagram of global market strategies, but her mind was nowhere near the subject. Every time she tried to jot down notes, the image of Jungkook accepting chocolate from Minji earlier kept replaying in her head. Why didn't he just refuse like he always does? Why did he accept it? The professor's voice explaining the lesson felt like it was echoing from far away. Yin's chest felt heavy, and her eyes were fixed on her notebook without truly reading anything. Suddenly, the soft vibration of her phone on the desk snapped her out of her thoughts. She glanced left and right to make sure no one was watching, then carefully unlocked the screen. A message from Jungkook. "During the break, I'll be waiting for you on the rooftop." Yin's brows knitted together. She typed quickly, her irritation evident. "What for? I don't want to." The message was sent, and she tried to refocus on the lecture, but not even 2 minutes later, her phone buzzed again. Another message came in, "Just come." Yin let out a quiet scoff. She really wanted to ignore him. Her hand was already reaching to lock her phone when the screen lit up again, a third message from him, "If you don't come, I'll still wait for you on the rooftop." Yin froze, staring at the screen for longer this time. The words somehow felt different. Not like the usual Jungkook, who was curt and blunt. There was a tone that was insistent but oddly gentle. She closed her phone without replying, but behind her annoyed expression, something in her chest warmed slightly. The midday wind blew strongly across the rooftop, sending a few strands of Yin's hair across her face. She stood for a moment in front of the door, hesitant to step forward, but in the end, she pushed it open and walked out. Jungkook was already there, leaning against the safety railing, both hands tucked into his pockets. His gaze was fixed on the slightly cloudy blue sky. When Yin approached, Jungkook glanced sideways and raised a brow. "You came after all." Yin scoffed, "Not because I wanted to, just so you wouldn't keep waiting for me." Jungkook didn't reply. Instead, he reached into his bag, pulling out the Godiva chocolate paper bag Minji had given him that morning, and held it out to her. Yin frowned. "Why are you giving this to me?" "That's from Minji for you." "I don't want it. I accepted it earlier because I know you like chocolate, especially ones like this, premium, expensive. And this brand's your favorite, right? Would have been a waste to just reject it." Yin looked at the chocolates for a moment, then shook her head. "Then you eat it. It's for you." "I don't like sweets. Why would I eat it?" he replied casually. "I accepted it so I could give it to you, not because I wanted it. If it weren't for you, I would have definitely refused." Yin crossed her arms. "Then why don't you just accept all the cookies, macarons, and drinks other girls give you? You get a lot of those, right?" Jungkook gave a faint smile, a rare sight on his face. "Because those are all cheap stuff. But if you want, starting tomorrow, I'll accept everything, and you can eat it all." Yin paused, a little taken aback by the playful tone she hardly ever heard from him, but her pride was still intact. No thanks. I'm not eating gifts from other girls." Then just eat this one, he said firmly, opening the paper bag and taking out the elegant chocolate box. Yin still pretended to resist, but her eyes were already fixed on the neatly arranged premium chocolates inside. Fine, open it, she said softly, trying to sound nonchalant. Jungkook unwrapped it, then held out a small piece of chocolate. Mouth. Yin blinked, feigning confusion. What? Open your mouth, I'll feed you. Yin flushed. I can eat it myself. You asked me to open it, now just listen. In the end, Yin opened her mouth, and Jungkook calmly fed her the chocolate. The sweet aroma immediately filled her senses, melting smoothly on her tongue. So good. Yin closed her eyes briefly, then looked back at him. You should try one too. Just one. Jungkook shook his head without hesitation. No, I don't like sweets. But this is really good, just try it, Yin coaxed, holding a piece of chocolate closer to his lips. He still shook his head, but his gaze softened. I'd rather watch you eat it. Yin lowered her gaze slightly, pretending to be busy herself with another piece, but her cheeks were warm. The rooftop no longer felt tense. Something softer and warmer flowed between them. Several months had passed since the rooftop incident. Time seemed to move quickly until the day finally came, and they graduated. Just yesterday, they had celebrated their commencement, a whole day filled with photos, flowers, and congratulatory hugs. And tonight, the entire class gathered at a large villa on the outskirts of the city for a farewell party. The garden lights glowed warmly, soft music flowed from the speakers, and the scent of barbecue mingled with the cool night air. Almost everyone was there, including Yin with Mina and Yuju, while on the other side stood Jungkook, Jaehyun, Yoonwoo, and Minju. Initially, Jungkook hadn't planned on coming. He wasn't the type who enjoyed crowded events, but after constant pestering from Jaehyun, Minju, Yoonwoo, and Yin's repeated pleading messages, he finally gave in. The party started off lighthearted. Yin sat at an outdoor table with Mina and Yuju, laughing as they reminisced about campus moments. Meanwhile, Jungkook lingered on the terrace with his group, occasionally joining in their jokes but more often sipping his drink in silence. As the night went on, bottles emptied one by one. Their laughter grew louder, steps became unsteady, and faces flushed red. It was close to midnight when Yin began feeling lightheaded. She decided to head inside to find somewhere quieter. At the same time, Jungkook, also tipsy, wandered in slowly, looking to escape the noise. By chance, they met on the balcony connecting the living room to the back garden. You. Yin's voice was slightly husky, her eyes half-lidded yet still focused on the figure in front of her. Jungkook stared at her for a few seconds, the corners of his lips curling faintly. Were you looking for me? He asked, his tone lower than usual. Yin chuckled softly. No, I didn't even know you were here. Yet her steps moved closer, narrowing the distance between them. She inhaled deeply, then smiled. The air here feels so fresh. Jungkook glanced sideways, his gaze catching Yin's relaxed expression. You look a lot more at ease now. Yin let out a small laugh. Maybe because it's far from all the noise. Or because there's nothing bothering me. No one bothering you, hum? Jungkook raised an eyebrow, pretending to suppress a smile. So, I'm not a bother? You? Yin glanced at him while absent-mindedly twirling a strand of her hair, then lowered her head. Of course not. The atmosphere fell silent for a moment. They stood close enough, yet not touching. Jungkook shifted his position slightly nearer to Yin, his arm resting casually on the balcony railing, though his gaze remained fixed on her. The garden lights below reflected a soft glow onto their faces, making the moment feel warmer than the night air that was actually cold. You look drunk, Jungkook murmured quietly. Yin gave a faint smirk. Even if I am, so are you. The difference is, I can still stand straight. Jungkook tilted his chin slightly, as if in challenge. Yin chuckled, then lowered her head, letting the ends of her hair fall and cover part of her face. But you look different tonight. Different? Jungkook tilted his head. What do you mean? I don't know. Maybe because I've never seen you drunk before. You've always looked so cold and composed. Jungkook gave a faint smile but didn't answer right away. He glanced briefly at the night sky, then returned his gaze to her. Maybe you'll start seeing more of my other sides from now on. Yin stayed quiet for a moment, then leaned her back against the balcony railing, letting the distance between them grow even smaller. The night breeze blew, sending a few strands of her hair flying. Without thinking, Jungkook reached out and brushed the strands away from her face. That brief touch made Yin's heart race uncontrollably, but she liked seeing this different side of him. If you want, I can show you another side of me tonight, Jungkook's voice was calm, but his eyes hinted at something deeper. Yin looked at him for a few seconds, and then, perhaps because of the drunk or a sudden rush of courage, she reached out and touched the back of Jungkook's hand that was still on the balcony railing. Jungkook didn't pull away. His fingers slowly turned, intertwining with hers instead. Yin smiled. What kind of other side? I want to see them all. Then her eyes shifted to their linked hands. She let out a small, amused laugh. Your hand is so cold. That's why I need you to warm it. Those words made Yin's cheeks heat up, and without realizing it, she locked eyes with Jungkook. Their gaze lingered for quite a while until Jungkook slowly leaned in. In that moment, with only a few centimeters between them, Yin closed her eyes, allowing their lips to meet. The kiss was soft at first, slow, as if both of them were trying to remember each other's taste. But second by second, their hands tightened around each other, their bodies pressing closer. Jungkook's arms pulled her nearer, holding her as if he never wanted to let go. After several minutes, the kiss finally broke. His gaze returned to hers, heavy, deep, and as if holding back something that could no longer be contained. Their breaths mingled in the air, warm, yet making their hearts pound faster. Suddenly, Jungkook's right hand clasped Yin's left tightly, gently pulling her inside. Their steps quickened until Jungkook led her to one of the bedrooms at the end of the hallway. As soon as the door opened, a familiar masculine scent greeted Yin. Her eyes briefly caught an open suitcase, one of Jungkook's hoodies neatly folded over a chair, and his watch resting on the table. But her attention lasted only a moment, because Jungkook had already pulled her in again, closing the door with his back, and lowering his head to kiss her lips once more. Yin felt her back press against the wall as Jungkook leaned in, his warm fingers brushing the nape of her neck. Their kisses deepened, occasionally breaking only to catch their breath before meeting again. I want tonight to be just the two of us, he murmured between breaths, his voice low, sincere, yet carrying the tone of a plea. Yin could only nod, unable to speak. Her hands reached for the collar of Jungkook's shirt, pulling him closer once more. They moved toward the bed, and as their bodies touched the mattress, the world outside that room seemed to disappear. That morning, sunlight slipped through the sheer curtains, warming the room. Yin slowly opened her eyes, feeling the blanket wrapped around her body, and Jungkook's arms still draped firmly around her waist, as if afraid she might disappear. The sound of Jungkook's breathing was steady against her ear, his warmth brushing the skin of her neck. Yin shifted slightly, only to find her face moving even closer to Jungkook's bare chest. The same masculine scent from last night lingered, calming, yet making her heart race. Jungkook murmured softly, a sign he was waking up. His eyes opened halfway, meeting Yin's gaze already on him. His lips curved faintly, his voice husky as he greeted, "Morning." Yin only replied with a quiet hum, her cheeks flushing. She was about to sit up, but Jungkook tightened his hold on her waist. "Just a little longer," he mumbled, closing his eyes again and pulling her closer. They stayed in silence for a while, listening to each other's heartbeats. Every now and then, Jungkook's fingers traced gentle patterns along Yin's back, making her body relax even more. Yin looked at his face, half hidden by messy hair, and without thinking, she brushed the strands away with her fingers. "Are you always like this in the morning?" she teased softly. "Too lazy to get up right away?" Jungkook opened his eyes, gazing at her intently. "This morning's different. Last night, we did something." His tone was light. Yin gave a small smile, then paused for a moment. Something was weighing on her mind. "Jungkook," she called quietly. What if I'm pregnant?" Jungkook was silent for a beat before his eyes grew serious. "Are you scared?" Yin looked away. "I was just thinking, you wouldn't leave me, right?" His hand came up to cup her cheek. "Yin, whether you get pregnant or not, the truth is, we're arranged to be married. And soon, we will be. No matter what happens, we're still getting married." Yin swallowed, her heart trembling slightly at the certainty in his voice. "Are you sure? You once said you'd refuse our engagement." Jungkook let out a small chuckle. "Didn't I tell you before? What I said back then was just a joke." He leaned down, pressing a brief but meaningful kiss to her forehead. Yin closed her eyes, letting that warmth sink in. Then she asked, "How are we going to get out of this room? Won't they be suspicious?" Jungkook only smiled faintly and closed his eyes again. "I'm sure they're all still asleep. Last night, everyone was drunk." Hearing that, Yin simply nodded quietly in Jungkook's embrace. 6 months later, Yin and Jungkook's marriage had grown much warmer. They lived in a grand mansion with a spacious yard, and now Yin was 5 months pregnant. Her belly had started to show, making her steps a little slower. Jungkook, who who was once known for being stern and cold, now often appeared gentler, though only toward her, while his dominant demeanor remained. Outside the home, he was busy managing the family's real estate business alongside his father while also handling organizational affairs. But once he returned home, all his energy was devoted to Yin. That night, Jungkook had just arrived home. His black suit was still perfectly in place, but the moment he saw Yin sitting on the living room sofa with a cup of warm tea in her hand, a smile appeared on his face. "I'm home," he said as he walked closer. Yin lifted her face, a small smile on her lips. "Tired?" "Tired," Jungkook replied as he sat beside her. His hand immediately reached for Yin's belly. "But the moment I see you too, all my exhaustion disappears." Yin let out a small chuckle. "You too?" "Yes, you and our baby," Jungkook said, leaning down to plant a kiss on her belly. "How was your day? Anything bothering you?" "No, just a little backache." Without another word, Jungkook's hand slipped behind her back, gently massaging it. "You have to tell me if something hurts. Don't keep it to yourself." Yin looked at him with an amused smile. "You've become so attentive since I got pregnant." "I'm supposed to be." Jungkook's gaze was firm yet warm. "You and our baby are my priority now." That night, as usual before bed, Yin talked about how the baby had kicked her belly that morning, about the flowers she had been taking care of in the garden that were starting to bloom, and other light topics. Jungkook sat beside her, one hand propping his head, his eyes following every movement of Yin's lips. But gradually, his gaze dropped, lingering longer on Yin's chest, which now looked fuller than before. Noticing where his eyes were focused, Yin immediately grabbed the blanket and pulled it up to her chest, pursing her lips. "What are you looking at?" she asked, her cheeks starting to flush. Jungkook gave a faint smile, as if he felt no guilt. Why did they suddenly get bigger like that? Before, they weren't this big. His tone sounded innocently curious, but his eyes were clearly filled with interest. Yin looked at him for a moment, then chuckled softly. "Do you really not know, or are you pretending not to know?" "I don't know," Jungkook replied casually, though the corners of his lips curled mischievously. "That's why I'm asking you to explain." Yin let out a slow sigh, trying to keep her tone serious. "It's normal during pregnancy. My body is preparing to produce breast milk for the baby after is born. The mammary glands enlarge, blood flow increases, so the size changes. It's not weird. Plus, at 5 months pregnant, colostrum starts being produced little by little." "Colostrum?" Jungkook raised an eyebrow, clearly unfamiliar with the term. Yin nodded. "Yes, it's the first form of breast milk." Jungkook finally gave a slow nod, though his gaze never left her face. "So, this means your body is already starting to get ready to be a mother." It was a simple sentence, but it made Yin pause, her heart warming. She shook her head with a shy smile. "You really do know how to make me nervous before bed." Jungkook just chuckled softly and kissed her temple. "Then let me make you nervous every night." Yin lightly smacked his chest, but didn't resist when Jungkook closed the distance to place a kiss on her forehead. Jungkook's eyes lingered on Yin's face as she lay beside him. His gaze was gentle, but Yin could see there was still an unquenched curiosity in it. "So, if your milk is already there, I want to try," Jungkook said softly, his tone casual but clearly not sounding like a joke. Yin instantly turned to him, eyes widening. "What? Are you serious?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper, as if afraid someone might overhear. Jungkook nodded slightly, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Serious. All this time, there hasn't been any, so my mouth has never tasted it. If there is now, I'm really curious what it's like." Yin bit her lower lip, her face heating up. "I don't even know what it tastes like. Maybe like formula milk, or UHT milk from the store." Jungkook chuckled softly. "Exactly, because I don't know. I'm curious." Their eyes met. This time, Jungkook's smile faded, replaced with a serious look that, for some reason, made Yin's heartbeat quicken. His eyes were still gentle, but they were fixed entirely on her. "Jungkook," Yin whispered, trying to break eye contact. "Come on, it's not like it's the first time I've done something like that with you," he said, his tone still low and soothing. Yin bit her lip again. He wasn't wrong, but still, this time the purpose felt different. "But you don't even like sweet things. You might not like the taste." Jungkook smiled. "Yeah, but maybe this time I will." Yin exhaled slowly. Her cheeks and ears were already red, but Jungkook's patient, unwavering gaze made it hard to say no. She knew he wasn't teasing. He was genuinely curious. "Fine, but not for too long," she said softly, barely audible. The corners of Jungkook's lips lifted again, that faint smile returning. Alright, he replied simply, though his gaze didn't waver, as if waiting for a moment he had been anticipating. And 15 minutes later, Jungkook finally let go, exhaling slowly. He kept his gaze on Yin, his eyes holding a mix of satisfaction and just a hint of disappointment. Yin, who had been holding back her nervousness all this time, finally spoke up. "So, how was it?" she asked, tilting her head slightly downward but still glancing at him with curiosity. Jungkook gave a faint smile and wiped the corner of his mouth. "Amazing," he replied firmly. "It was a little sweet, but with a hint of savoriness. Warm and thicker in texture than regular milk. There's a soft sensation on the tongue, like freshly squeezed milk, but with a natural taste that's hard to describe." Yin blinked, smiling shyly. "Seriously? I thought it would be bland, or maybe taste bad." But Jungkook let out a breath, as if holding back his dissatisfaction. "Unfortunately, there was barely any. The right side's gone, and the left's gone too. I was hoping for more." Yin chuckled at his words. "You?" Jungkook looked at her with a warm, lopsided smile. "Now I get it. Turns out only your milk can make me enjoy something sweet." And he leaned in slightly. "I think I just found a new addiction." Yin looked at Jungkook in amused disbelief, her fingertips pinching his arm lightly. "Don't end up competing with our baby, okay?" she said with a laugh. Jungkook quickly shook his head, his warm laughter filling the room. "For our baby, I'll definitely step aside," he said sincerely, his eyes soft with affection. "But if the baby's full, the rest is still mine, right?" he added with a playful wink. Yin covered her mouth to hold back a laugh, her cheeks warming at Jungkook's rare mischievousness. Yeah, I'll make sure to save you some," she replied with feigned indifference as she fixed her nightgown and got ready for bed. Jungkook chuckled softly, then pulled her into his embrace. The warmth of his body wrapped around her in comfort, making the morning feel so peaceful. Outside, the moonlight filtered through the thin curtains, as if joining in on their little moment of happiness.